Hi, everyone. This is Victor Lund from the Wave Group. I have my friend Jeffrey Fullbright here, and of course, the famous Lucy Fortier. What's happening, guys?
Hey, happy Monday, Victor. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, for sure. This is fun. So, we work with a lot of MLSs to try to understand, like, they're trying to put together their strategy on what to do with AI. And, our answer to all of them is start by talking to your vendor. And there hasn't been a whole lot of information published about, what any of the MLS vendors are doing with AI. So I've been knocking on doors, and you guys are kind enough to come and join me on this call today. I did notice a quick piece of news today that there was a big collaboration announced between Zillow and ChatGPT around AI, which allows ChatGPT to go and access all of the data that Zillow has about property listings through that interface today. And, it struck me as kind of an interesting thing because, here we have a brokerage who's assembled all the data nationally, who's really taking this sort of first course, if you will, in how to expose information to consumers. But when you think about the role of the MLS, I mean, they sit there managing the collaboration among real estate brokerages in the market. They organize that collaboration through systems like what you guys provide in Paragon. And certainly real estate agents should have access to this information through the GPT or large language model of their choice. And I also think that application vendors would like an opportunity to access the data through like an MCP server that's appended to the MLS listing information versus extracting that data, setting up their own MCP server, which probably doesn't have any of the controls for access or data usage or compliance or security, any of the things that you guys do so profoundly well. So does that sound like a good agenda for our call today?
Sounds
Sounds like a
great.
plan.
The space is evolving very quickly, so happy to have the conversation and provide any insights that we can during this time.
Yeah. So just introduce yourselves a little bit, talk about your roles at the company, and then maybe we can just kick it off by just going through some basic questions that I have for you.
Yeah, fantastic. So I'm Lucy Fortier. I'm the general manager of the MLS Solutions Group here at Intercontinental Exchange. Been in the role for 2 years and counting, and work with a really great team to deliver an industry-leading MLS platform.
That's pretty cool. And how many agents are served through your platform today, or markets are served through your platform today, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, we have over 160 MLS customers throughout the United States and Canada. And our solution is available to north of 500,000 agents in
Woo,
all of those markets.
that's pretty impressive.
And more to
Jeffrey,
come.
what's your job? What do you do?
Sure. So I'm Jeffrey Fullbright. I'm the director of engineering. So I manage all of basically the engineering assets and the quality assurance assets within the MLS division here at ICE.
So I think you guys are one of the first MLSs to sort of start integrating AI applications into your MLS system. What comes to mind is reshaping.ai. You want to talk us a little bit about that and where you think that is providing advantages to your customers?
Yeah, for sure. Resby was obviously one of the first bigger players in the AI space in the real estate segment. We've been working with that team for a number of years to deliver just some of the fundamental pieces. And one of the most obvious use cases that, became very apparent in the early days of AI, which is, hey, what's in this photo? We have a lot of listing information. Agents enter a lot of information. We enhance that with public records and demographics and all kinds of other data. But the photos really contain such rich information about the property itself that kind of visual AI just seemed like a really great enhancement to better mine what is actually happening in the property. So yeah, it's been a great partnership for us. It's been a really solid win for a lot of our MLSs that have integrated that functionality in their platform.
And have you guys seen the lift in the speed at which, like, are you using it in ad edit to hydrate the listing or?
We're not currently using it for autofill. What we are using it for is to satisfy some of the ADA compliance, making sure that agents don't have to spend as much time providing a photo description And so we are really kind of using it in that way. We're also using it for compliance, so MLS compliance, making sure there's no private information in the photos, making sure there's no signage, any PII that's visible. And we've recently just deployed the photo match, like, hey, find me listings that look like this, which is still in the early days, but really exciting for consumers in terms of, I really love this kitchen, or I really love this type of architecture. Find me the other active inventory that looks like this.
We are using
So
it to generate remarks in the listing form. So some of that, just not any of the photo details yet. That'll come at a later date.
so you can sort of it'll write the property descriptions for
Yeah,
you.
it'll you can feed property data into it from a partial listing, pick what style you want, professional, playful, things like that, and it'll go ahead and generate the remarks.
Playful real estate. I love it.
Exactly.
One of the things that I found to be really interesting is like, and you brought this up, Lucy, around ADA compliance, but the metadata in the photos that allows people with disabilities to actually know what they're looking at in a picture. Have you guys deployed that so it's available through the IDX feeds that brokers are consuming today, so they can enable that on their website?
Yeah, so any content that where Respi is enabled and providing those descriptions, that becomes part of the listing content. So it is part of the IDX and VOW payloads. So where an MLS has opted in for that, that becomes part of the listing content, generally speaking.
Awesome. Well, if you ever come up with examples of people who are actually leveraging that, please let me know. I haven't seen it on the property search websites, but I'm anxious to do that.
Sounds good, will do.
So what are some of the other AI powered features that you guys are deploying in Paragon?
Well, one of the earliest features that we are working on today, right now, with our MLS customers is natural language search. So really providing that chatbot experience about, hey, show me the listings that I'm interested in that are in this location with these features, and really kind of providing that very traditional AI experience that people are accustomed to. So anybody who's worked with ChatGPT, whether in their personal lives or their professional lives, this is an experience that they're accustomed to. So that's one of the very first early use cases that we are refining and making sure that we're meeting our customers where they want and providing the experience they want with respect to search.
So the filtered checklist will always be there, but probably be, I imagine people are going to gravitate toward a natural language experience. I remember, looking at some of the first natural language applications, which happened, if you guys remember, onboard informatics, and they were doing so much breakthrough technology. Boy, that must have been 10, 15 years ago. And, but it's really, until we got into this generative AI world, we never really saw it pay off the way consumers expected it to pay off. So it's pretty exciting to see
Yeah,
that.
the natural language search has been really limited. AI is going to unlock that in a way that we just haven't seen before, to your point. Absolutely.
From a technical perspective, Jeffrey, you want to just talk about how the context modeling allows the natural language search to work better in your environment than sort of the old methodology that was used a decade ago?
Sure. So basically internally what we've done is, the LLM will have access to an MCP server that is sitting on top of all of the Paragon APIs. It's going to go through, it's actually aware of RESO data dictionary and, what all the, fields are called, et cetera, et cetera. So it's going to help us basically take that natural language that they're entering in, help us build that query through the use of MCP, and then execute the query and deliver the results.
And so do you see a world where, I mean, like right now, obviously the reporting environment is really important for real estate agents. So, they'll go in and they'll build a CMA, or they'll ask something about the market. When do you see you surfacing that technology to all the agents in your system?
I think that'll be a fast follow on. I mean, the ability to build custom report, rather than us having to build these very detailed step-by-step report builders that, are exist in all of the MLS systems, even statistical reports. Every MLS system has these monolithic stats reports, modules with 60 different, reports that may or may not have everything that that agent or broker is looking for. Now with the ability to use MCP, it's got access to the data, ask the LLM what you're specifically looking for, and hey, if you don't like it, rephrase your prompt and have it give you exactly what you're looking for. It's going to be really powerful in the near future.
And
Yeah, I think that this is one of the most exciting pieces for me, I think, because we're really moving from a model that is prescriptive and static, to your point, the criteria search, the pre-canned reports, the pre-canned statistics, to deliver what the agent is looking for. It just gives a lot more freedom for agents to dig in and mine the data in a way that just has not been possible prior to LLMs and MCP servers.
yeah, I know, we've worked on a couple of different projects for some of the franchise and the large broker companies. So, for example, Keller Williams and now recently Anywhere have deployed Canva as a design tool for all of their agents, which, is probably half the market if you combine those two companies. I think one of them is 165,000, one of them has 300,000. That's a lot of people. And uh, I think it'll be very interesting when you can sort of take your Canva account and say, okay, I'm going to do my research inside of Paragon, but I want it to present to my client using, this branding architecture. So now I can just tow in my Canva branding architecture without having to like load that into Paragon, right? It'd be some interesting opportunities as we move forward to see how the integration of systems, but at the broker agent team enterprise level, start to present themselves to create unique experiences within something that is sort of an MLS wide thing. So my report is going to look different when the data is extracted out of Paragon than my competitor's report because I do these systems integrations.
No question. I think that is, AI not only is going to be super powerful in terms of finding the information, but it's going to allow agents and brokers to differentiate themselves in a way that has not really been possible to date. They're all getting that pre-canned static information, and now the ability to be curious and to really deliver value in the way that you want to as a broker or agent is going to be a lot more possible.
Yeah, I used to argue with our good friend Greg Robertson about this all the time. I'm like, why do I want a CMA that looks exactly like the next person's? Like the swapping out of the logo doesn't brand the CMA to me. Like, let's go. Can't we do better?
If we
Yeah,
all look the same, we all look the same, right? Yeah,
and
yeah.
each agent or broker can now have their own style. It doesn't have to be this dry looking spreadsheet. Show me the little playful graph I can get to my consumer that shows the trends of this neighborhood or market, et cetera. It's really now that can be very individual.
So, do you have any pilot programs working with MLSs today, or is that something that's going to happen in the near future?
So we are actively in user research. So we've put together some Figmas and some prototypes that we have brought to some of our customers. Our first pass, we got some really great feedback. We weren't exactly on the right path and going down the road that, what our user said was, we want it to be more chatbot-like and more familiar and more traditional, like what somebody would experience in ChatGPT. And so we're currently in iteration number 2. We're going to continue to iterate, but we definitely will be deploying something within Paragon in early first half of 2026.
That's cool. So, we talked a little bit about like what's happening inside of Paragon. The other issue is like what's happening outside of Paragon when do you guys see a day when application service providers will be able to attach to those MCP servers just like they would connect to an IDX server today?
I think absolutely. It's something that's going to be similar to RETs or Web API in the near future. It's a service that definitely, like you mentioned earlier, MLSs are still going to want control over who's seeing the data, what data is going out. They still want to apply all the same controls they do today, but they need to support where the technology is headed. So it's definitely a service. We're using it internally now for the applications we talked about, and then we'll figure out how we productize that and expose it to our customers.
you want to kind of break down security and control and trust and things like that. I mean, presumably it'll start with an agreement, right?
Correct.
Yeah. The business model, the business and go-to-market models are actually more important. Anybody today can integrate to an AI large language model. It's something that almost any vendor can say, hey, we provide AI. I think where the really key differentiators are going to be is exactly in everything that kind of surrounds the AI functionality itself. So you have the AI functionality and the experience, but we're really kind of obsessed with the security and the legal frameworks and the IP and what does the licensing agreement look like? Those are the things that really are going to be the differentiators and are going to matter more in some ways than the AI experience itself.
And Jeffrey, how are you sort of anticipating that you'll put guardrails around the MCP server that deny certain malicious behavior from happening?
Certainly, I mean, a lot of that infrastructure already exists today. I mean, MLS, the APIs that are going to be exposed to MCP or the tools listed in there will already in the control of the MLSs, right? They can pick when this user authenticates, to MCP, that it's going to flow down to the underlying APIs. They can only see XYZ number of fields, values, data, etc. So really the control for all of this still is in the hands of the MLS. It's their data. They're the ones that be able to choose what's getting out into the world.
Yeah. So one of the things that we've been working on quite a bit is this notion of AI sovereignty. We see a lot of MLSs renting AI applications today. And I think some of the challenges to rent, like when you're building intelligence, in that relationship between the MLS and the subscriber, if you're renting that intelligence and you switch vendors, like you lose it, it's gone. So how do MLSs work with you in a way that allows them to maintain that AI sovereignty, but still have continuity programs?
Yeah, I think it's a tricky question, and obviously everything's evolving very quickly. Obviously, models benefit from scale, and large language models benefit from a lot of data and a broad set of data. And so I think it's a really tricky proposition to think that MLSs can own the full stack only for what they want and only based on their data. I just don't think that's going to create an AI experience that is going to be valuable for their users or for the MLS, to be honest. And so really, I think the crux here is about working in a way that allows the MLS that certainty that their data is their data, which absolutely it always is. But how do we permit specific vendors, trusted vendors, to work with that data in a way that will allow us to build an AI model and an MCP server that will have value and really deliver a good user experience and really allow the agent to do what they need to do in a more efficient, effective way.
And Jeffrey, do you think so if an MLS came to you and said, hey, I love what you're doing with MCP servers. I'd like to have my own instance of it in AWS or whatever. Do you think that that's a service that MLSs will be compelled to offer in the future?
It's possible. It's something that we're going to have to explore and then put the necessary guardrails around. But it's
Yeah.
definitely something that's going to come up, and we'll have to come up with a plan to deal with it.
Yeah, I look at, what the path that our industry has gone down, and certainly you guys have, and Lucy, I think you've been involved in every data share on the planet. But, and, back in the early days, and this is before we had great structure around data, I think our friend Art Carter said he had to kill gerbils or something. Like when you're trying to match up data sets and get data, data fields and to match up with one another, you're like, it's a very paralyzing experience, especially when you have 5 or 6 MLSs trying to normalize their data. That kind of goes away with AI, right?
Yes and no. I mean, I think that there's kind of two different things here. I think MLSs have to recognize that within the context of their MLS platform, their data is a walled garden. So, they have access to their data I don't know that it makes sense to set up an MCP server against only their data, only for them, versus an MCP server that has access to the aggregate or the broader data set in a way that then also provides the experience for that MLS specifically. So multi-tenant MCP server actually probably makes a lot more sense than MLSs thinking that they are going to provide really great value independently of each other. I just don't think that makes sense. It doesn't really compute in the world of AI.
Yeah, I guess what I'm thinking of is like rather than creating a data lake where you have data contributions of 5 MLSs that have chosen to data share and they could be, cross vendor, it doesn't matter. Like I think in an MCP world, that kind of goes away. We put an MCP server on each of those 5 data sets. They could be across any vendor, and then you put an orchestrator in the middle so you can query the data across all 5 without ever mashing the data up. Is that where you see it going in the future?
Um, yeah, Jeff will have an opinion for sure, but what I will say is, one of the nice things is that we all, as MLS vendors, have a copy of the MLS data in RESO standard format. So even though every MLS has its own localized set of fields, there is some commonality across the data for 80% of the fields and information. And that really is a lot more powerful in terms of powering AI models than each independent database. And so I kind of see it's a little bit of both, with the localized fields really being where the localized MCP kind of context becomes really important for each MLS.
Yeah, I think that what you're describing definitely gets you quicker to market rather than having to acquire all the data. But we'll have to wait and see what the user experience, ends up being like. What if one of the MCP servers has access to data, or has a tool that the other ones don't? Then how does that fit in with the overall end result of what the user experience is asking for? So some of that still remains to be seen.
Yeah, I I I spoke to a guy earlier today who's doing some international data share work, and same kind of thing. Like they're contemplating a data lake, and I was like, boy, how do you rationalize data schema from Dubai and Orlando? Like, it's gonna be really fun. Maybe you should just kind of keep it separate, but we'll see how that all works out. I think it's gonna be an issue that we arm wrestle with. I know it's really hard to keep these data lakes synchronized and organized rationally without causing a lot of challenges, but and we'll see how that comes about. So let's just
Brand new
kind of
world.
look
I
at.
mean, MCP servers and all of this is all, it's evolving so quickly. Whenever we talk internally about it, it seems like the functionality and what's possible changes on a day-to-day basis. So still a lot of unanswered questions, Victor, for sure. But something that is very exciting for the development community, very exciting for our developers to be playing with, and going to be answering those questions as we move forward without question.
So just had like 3 more questions. So what AI feature or capability do you think is going to become pretty standard over the next year or two?
Um, Definitely natural language search, Jeff. I don't know. Would you agree?
I would agree. I mean, I think, natural language search is going to be table stakes here in the near future. The other thing that's going to come out with ours, when we first iterate through this is going to be, we're basically taking our, help files, we're, extracting that information, we're putting into a vector database, it's going to be RAG associated with those LLMs. And then, that is going to be very easy for an agent to go into Paragon and say, how do I do a CMA? I mean, that is going to be, it's going to drastically eliminate the support calls and stuff like that. I think that is also going to be table stakes here in the next, 1 to 2 years, obviously.
Yeah, you guys actually have a huge advantage in that area in terms of because you've had customer support call centers for a really long time, and you have managed that knowledge base really well, I think. Not only to allow your people to give answers more quickly, but certainly to build all of that knowledge together. So it'll be pretty fascinating when you put a Ask Lucy app and you connect it to Paragon, and literally the real estate agent could get the answer to any question that they have. Because I mean, how many calls do you guys get to your call center a month? It's got to be an enormous number.
In the thousands.
It's a
Yeah.
lot, yeah.
Yeah.
So when you take thousands of calls and you leverage that information to train an LLM, they'll be able to get customer support and service in real time 24/7, better, faster, cheaper than they would ever get on a phone call.
Yep.
Yeah, it's exactly the same thing as what we were talking about with the reporting. The help articles are all very static. And so agents generally don't want to watch a 20-minute video to get to the one answer that they're looking for, or the one specific feature that they have a question about. So not only is it going to help the self-serve side on the agent side, hey, how do I do exactly this thing that I'm trying to do? But our support team is also going to benefit because they have now access at their fingertips to a whole repository of things. The key here, of course, is garbage in, garbage out. And so we are taking a lot of time to make sure that what we feed into the model is high quality and correct and accurate and up to date. A lot of times those help repositories are the things that don't get a lot of attention, that aren't updated or kept up to date. So we are working today to make sure that what we're putting into those large language models are accurate, and then both on the self-serve and the support side, really looking to enormous benefits in the next year or two on that side.
Yeah, I mean, just listening to you say that, it just came to me that, like, in a year or two from now, if I'm a first time user and I need to build a CMA, I'm not going to say, tell me how to build a CMA. I'm going to say, I don't know what a CMA is. My broker told me I need to build one. I'm working with the client and this is their address. Build it for me and show me how you do it. And literally the cursor starts moving. I think that would just be crazy.
And
So
then tell me all of the logic that you use to go into building that and explain it to me so I can answer those questions when they come up at a listing appointment. I mean, it's going to simplify so many workflows.
yeah, so that's, I think, what a lot of MLS executives are trying to understand agentic AI and how that differs from what we have today. So we're excited to see how, pioneering companies like yours start to experiment with those things moving forward. So for MLSs, whether you're a client or not, they're looking to prepare for their next chapter. What do you think are the key things they should be thinking about? We'll start with you, Jeff.
I think it's, making sure your policies, your agreements, your rules are aligned with where AI is taking us. Some of these things, as technology shifts has happened over my career in this business, they tended to move slowly. And I think we're in the part, we're in a shift now where it's going to move really fast and we need to keep up with it. So think about how you're going to be able to change in a series of months, not years, and keep up with it and make sure your agreement's up to date and your security policies, things like that are going to be where we're headed.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, even right now in our industry, we're talking about how IDX and VOW policies are not really serving the needs of today's brokers, and what is not keeping up with how the industry has changed in the last 20 years. And so definitely MLSs need to be looking at their policies. We do work with some MLSs sometimes where an innovation, will deliver something and they'll say, oh, our policy won't allow for that. And so if you want to be ready for innovation and looking forward, that's definitely a really good place to start. The other thing that I would say is I think, MLSs need to be really educating themselves so that they can do their due diligence about who they're partnering with to deliver AI. A lot of their IP is tied up into their agreements that the vendor is able to provide and the licensing agreements that they have with the large language model providers. And so it is going to require some education on the part of the MLSs to ask different questions and to really be a little bit more astute about where the industry is going and what the impacts are for them from a privacy, legal, regulatory, security kind of foundation that's going to support all of this moving forward.
So wave your magic wand and solve one problem for every MLS using AI. What would it be today?
I'll let you
Jeff, do
take
you
that
want
one,
me?
Lucy.
Yeah. What's that?
I'll let you take that one.
If I could wave a magic wand, it would be standardization of rules, days on market. I mean, we've come a really long way. But I do think that as we move forward, the more we get caught up and slowed down by differences that really aren't adding value, that to me is probably the biggest where I would wave my magic wand.
Jeffrey, inspired. You want to add to that?
I would definitely agree with that one. It it's probably one of still our biggest problems. As much as everyone is RESO certified, has RESO certified feeds, a lot of it's transform data. So still the underlying data is still very localized, per MLS to this day. So being able to solve that problem, it helps with future things like update, RESO update. You're not having to transform that data back into the native schema. Just having a standardized days on market policy would be something that would be hugely beneficial. So yeah, I definitely agree with Lucy.
Yeah, some brokers are just saying, "Ah, we just need to get rid of that field." And I do love, it's in it. You did bring up, I know at the recent CMLS event, there was a letter provided to the MLSs like, how come we can't do AVMs? Other companies get to do all these AVMs. I know you guys are great at AVMs, but how come the broker can't do an AVM? Things like that. So some really fascinating questions that we'll arm wrestle as we go forward in this new world. And I know that people are going to be excited about the things that you guys bring to market as one of the largest and most innovative companies. So I'm thrilled to see what you guys do. For people that want to stay in touch with the stuff, do you guys have a blog or social media pages where new and pioneering information is released that they should follow?
We definitely have a blog URL, which I'll happily provide to you, Victor. You can put it in the comments attached to this interview. And then, of course, we're out at all of the major events. We have a booth, we have a presence. We're happy to talk to everybody about what we're doing. You will be hearing from us also on social media. So Intercontinental Exchange has a presence. We have a presence. We continue to post what we're doing, what we're up to, and would love to have people follow us along for the journey.
Amazing. Well, it's going to be a fun ride over the next 2 years, and I'm sure the good stuff that you guys have coming up is going to be to the delight of your customers. So, thank you all for spending some time with me. I really appreciate it, and we'll see you on the road pretty soon.
Sounds great. Thanks, Victor.
Thanks, Victor.